Hey, how's it going, everybody? Peg Leg Page here, the 1 Foot Gamer. They call me that because I've only got one leg. I used to have 2 legs, but now I've just got one, or 1.5. It doesn't go all the way down. So, in previous videos, I've examined what the consequences would have to a realistic campaign world if various things in that world actually existed. You know, I've gone over low-level wizards and low-level clerics and medium-level wizards and just the massive amount of monsters. Obviously, you can't fully play the game that way, but it's interesting to talk about, and you could take bits and pieces of it and indeed work them into your game. Today, we're going to look at Undead, but I did want to answer a couple of questions. Why am I always wearing weird different hats, and why is everything a big mess behind me? That's because I sell things on eBay for a living because nobody hires men in their 40s with no college degree for jobs when everything they ever did previously they're no longer able to do anymore, so I support myself that way. The hats are simply things that I have, hats that I haven't processed to sell on eBay yet. I don't tend to wear a lot of hats out in the real world, but I like the look of hats on video, so I got my Dollywood hat here. I haven't actually been to Dollywood since I was 12. It was fun then. Went to Dolly's Dixie Stampede, though, on my honeymoon. That was a good time. Alright, today I think we're going to be looking at Undead. Now, decades of zombie movies have started to make me wonder how a pre-industrial society, like your medieval D&D societies, even ones with magic and clerics, could possibly deal with the undead. So, I'm going to do like I've done in previous videos. I go ahead and I got out my D&D Rules Cyclopedia. Not because that's my favorite version of the game or because that's the best version. It's just because it's the most condensed version of D&D. It's going to have the shortest list of overall monsters for the whole game, and it's not going to miss any of the real icons of the category. It's going to have everything of importance there. And I'm going to examine the various undead in the same order they appear on that cleric turn undead chart. And any references to that chart I make in this video were to the Rule Cyclopedia version of the game, but they're not that far off, or may indeed be exactly the same in other versions of Classic D&D. In fact, they're worse once you get past Classic D&D because clerics are limited in the amount of turning they can do past Classic D&D. At least I know they are in 3rd, and I'm pretty sure it's that way in 4th and 5th as well. So, first up, skeletons. Now, I think skeletons are a little threat. They've got a single hit dice, you know, they've got similar stats to an orc or a goblin, but they're completely mindless, and that mindless nature makes them easy to defeat with things like misdirection or simple obstruction. You know, you can just put up a wall around the city or the village, and the skeletons, unless they've got somebody actively out there directing them, they're just never going to get past the wall. Or, you know, you can dig a big pit, or whatever it is you need to do. However, it does take a 4th level cleric to simply destroy them at a whim, and most villages won't have one of those. Maybe some towns will, but most villages won't. Your next up, your zombies, really more the same as skeletons. They've got 2 hit dice instead of 1 hit dice. They're no more threatening than anything common in the game world. Same mindless problem as skeletons. Easier to detect because they smell bad. Really, a zombie is less dangerous than a bear. You do need a 5th level cleric to destroy them, though. But they also tend to have really bad armor classes. They're slow, and they're easy to hit. So, skeletons and zombies, they're just not that bad of a threat because they don't reproduce on their own. It requires a spellcaster to create them, and a spellcaster can create an army of them. But that army is no more powerful than any other group of humanoids, and the spellcaster is going to need an army of dead bodies to do it. Now, let's move on to ghouls. Ghouls are our first serious threat. Remember ghouls? They've got 3 attacks, claw, claw, bite, all of which have paralysis. Ghouls have 2 hit dice, and they do have the barest gleams of intelligence, which means that a single ghoul is a threat to a group of 3 to 5 human guards. Luckily, ghouls don't reproduce on their own, and it takes a 6th level cleric to destroy them with a turning. After this, it's all downhill. The Wight. The Wight is an undead spirit living in the body of a dead human or demi-human. They've got 3 hit dice. Here's where we start to get in trouble taking them out, though. A Wight cannot be damaged by a weapon unless that weapon is silver or magical. And a Wight drains hit dice or levels at a touch. And anything killed by the Wight rises as another Wight in 1d4 days. And whites have human level intelligence. They're on the low end of it. I think they average around a 5 or a 6 int, but if you've seen my intelligence video, that's not that terrible. Really, once whites appear, the world is doomed. It would only take one white coming up to a small human village at night to end up with an entire world of whites 6 months later. Their immunity to damage from normal weapons assures that they're going to take over. Although they'd still dominate the planet even if everybody on Earth, or Orth, or Earth, or Kryn had a silver sword. As that white only has to hit a normal human once to kill it, and eventually convert it into another white, while the human has to hit it 3 times on average with that silver sword to defeat it. Now, one thing I gotta note here, that whites are a common monster in the versions of the game that actually rank monsters as common, uncommon, rare, and very rare. Whites are common, which means they should be all over the place. It takes a 7th level cleric to destroy them in a whim. The only hope humanity has is that an unarmored human can outrun a white. However, you know what can't outrun a white? Dwarves, halflings, gnomes, goblins. So, once the white converts all of those, there'll be so many of them they can simply surround the human settlements and the humans don't have a chance. Next up, Wraith. If you thought that was bad, if you thought whites were bad, these are worse. They've got 4 hit dice. They can fly. Their attack causes both damage and energy drain at the same time, which means even those leveled characters will be taken down twice as fast. And they need a magic or silver to hit them. And they take half damage from silver. And they've got an armor class of 3 in normal classic, or if you're using classic uses inverted AC, it's like 17 or 16. And here's the thing, it would take that human guard 8 hits with his silver weapon to take out a white. But the guard only has a 20% chance of hitting that white. Well, I'm saying white here, Wraith. The guard only has a 20% chance of hitting that Wraith, but the Wraith has a 55% chance of hitting that guard, assuming the guard has leather armor. And the Wraith kills every normal human guard that they hit. Even the 2nd level ones, once you count the damage. A group of humans with silver weapons would have to outnumber the Wraiths at something like 8 to 1 to have any chance whatsoever. And that's assuming that the Wraiths didn't group up in such a manner to where they couldn't be surrounded by the humans. And since they're of human level intelligence, on the lower end though, they are smart enough to do that. They're also smart enough to flee if they take a lot of damage. Remember, they can fly. Villagers might have some silver weapons because they know there are wraiths around, but how many silver arrows do they have? And as long as that wraith can fly 1 full round, they're out of the range of those silver arrows. Then they can return in greater numbers, because anything killed by a wraith rises as another wraith in a single day. And it takes an 8th level cleric to simply destroy a wraith. How common are 8th level clerics in the world? Depends on your world, but there shouldn't be one hanging out in every little village. Hamlet's got one for some reason, but it shouldn't be the norm. Next up the power list are mummies. Now, mummies are incredibly powerful, but they don't match whites as far as a threat to humanity. They don't reproduce on their own. They're incredibly rare because they have to be created. And they have slow movement. They move at half the rate of a normal human. And they can be damaged by fire, which means large groups of normal humans can defeat them. Mummies are really more of a danger to adventurers than they are to humanity. Because a mummy who goes in the city will be destroyed by peasants throwing oil and torches at it and won't pose much of a threat to that city at all. It does take a 9th level cleric to simply destroy one, though. Alright, next up, specters. Now, if you thought whites and wraiths were bad, these are worse. These are more of a ghostly looking undead, you know, like your Ghostbusters ghosts. They have 6 hit dice. They have human intelligence. And they're faster than humans on the ground, and they can fly faster than most flyers. They drain 2 levels or hit dice at a touch, and anything killed by them rises as another specter as soon as night falls. Specters can only be hit by magical weapons. This makes even a single specter Basically impossible for anything outside of a mid-level adventuring party to kill. And it's going to take an 11th level cleric to destroy a Spectre. Spectres, in my opinion, are the single, probably #1 threat to any entire campaign world. Because of how impossible they are to damage for, the normal people who'd be fighting back against them, and how fast they can reproduce. One Spectre wanders into a city, gets a few quiet kills, because remember, he's human intelligence. He'll wander and he'll get a few quiet kills, and then he'll leave. Then that night, suddenly you got 10 more Spectres rising in the alleys where he killed some homeless people. And after that, it's all over. Whole city's gone. You've got a whole city's worth of Spectres ready to move on to the next city. They don't even have to be cautious anymore. Next up is your vampires. Now, D&D vampires are absolute monsters in and out of combat. They can blend in with humans. They have all these abilities, and they're far more powerful than any undead I mentioned below, but they have so many weaknesses. It means Spectres and Wights are a larger menace to the world than vampires. Matter of fact, the Wights race and Spectres, if we went down this route, they'd leave the vampires in the world with nothing left to feed on. And if you strictly play by the rules in some versions of the game, the vampire's reproductive ability completely breaks down. As newly created vampires don't have coffins, and thus they immediately start dying for not having one as soon as they raise. So thus, the vampire can't create more vampires carelessly. That vampire has to have a coffin ready for each vampire they want to create if they want that vampire to go on. So, not that easy. It takes a 13th level cleric to destroy a vampire with a simple turn. Next up, phantoms. While they're even more powerful than vampires, and they have the ability to reproduce, they are tied down to a single area, usually fairly small, and thus they're not a threat to the greater world. They're going to stay in their tomb. They're going to stay in their dungeon. They're going to stay in apparently their 50 by 50 foot area. Even if they're on the surface, they're not going anywhere. So if you stay out of the Phantom's way, he's going to stay out of your way. Now let's get into our honorable mentions. Shadows, they're mid-power range, and they do reproduce, but they don't wander from their lairs. Thus, they're just simply not a threat. They're going to hang around the area where they died or were created in the first place. Banshees, ghosts, spirits, and poltergeists, all ridiculously powerful, but they don't reproduce. Nightshade, these might only exist in the Rules Cyclopedia / Beckme version of D&D. I don't remember them being anywhere else, at least not in the main monster books. But these are Godzilla-level city-destroying undead creatures of insane power. These, I believe they appear in the D&D Master Set, which is for level 23 to 36. But they don't reproduce, and they normally only appear when specifically summoned. So you're not going to really be worrying about these guys because they're not going to be appearing in the first place. I think I've gone over everything on the other than liches on the turning chart, which liches, like any other wizard in his wizard of teen levels, is going to rule the world anyway. So that's everything on the cleric turning chart from Rules Cyclopedia. So what am I wrong about? What did I miss? Is there any way that this could be prevented? That the undead takeover the campaign world could be prevented? If there is, post in the comments. Thanks, and hope to see you again soon.